Welcome to another episode of Rich Dad StockCast, the podcast for people that are serious about improving their financial education. I'm your host, Denney, and today we're diving into a lesson that completely changed the way I think about wealth and one that most people still miss. It comes straight from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, mind your own business. No, it's not about being rude. It's about financial focus. While most people, spend their lives working hard for someone else's business, the wealthy focus on building their own assets. And today we'll show you how to do that. And remember, if you want to take your financial education to the next level, go to StockCastBonus.com right now. We've got free tools and resources that will help you start investing smarter. Now, joining me as always is Rich Dad expert Andy Tanner. Andy, great to have you back on the show.
This is going to be a great topic, and it actually fits really well with what we have at StockCast Bonus right now. Mind your own business. Like you say, some people say, stay out of my affairs. But it's less about staying out of other people's affairs and really focusing on your own affairs. So we'll talk about that. But that's a good bonus because, what we'll be talking about is the mind and the business. So where your focus is, right? When he says mind your business, you're going to focus on you and focus on what you're doing and focus on what you're building and your own business. Well, what we have at StockCastBonus.com is actually the absolute perfect first step to begin doing that. So that's great. What a great match.
Awesome. I love that. Now, Andy, most people, they hear this phrase and they think it means stay out of other people's lives, kind of like you just said. But in the Rich Dad context, it means something totally different. So let's break that down. Tell us what that really means.
Well, I hesitate to put words in Robert's mouth. I mean, we like to say what the author said, right? We like to say what was actually written in the book. And so he says this, he says, your job is not your business. And so what does that mean? Your job is not your business. Your job is someone else's business. You're putting time, you're putting energy, you're putting focus on someone else's business. And that job is not yours. It's not your business. Your business, and then he says this, the author said, your assets are your business. Start small, start concentrating on assets. Just imagine the change. Robert is a master of context. And I've been speaking more and more about this, especially in these times in which we live. And it's kind of, he uses a vase full of fruit, where the vase is the holder and the fruit is the content. We have a lot of content creators out there right now. But think about this. It really isn't the content. I've had, Dell, the opportunity to teach, probably over 1 million people easily, through various means throughout the world and on my travels. And the message has always been the same. When someone reads Rich Dad, Poor Dad, everyone's reading the same words. So why is it that people get varied results when everyone's reading the same words? Well, it's sort of biblical. It's like the seed's good, but how's the ground that it's being placed in? And so I really find myself, kind of lonely at times. I think the Rich Dad family might feel this way, in that the world thinks it's about the content, but it's really about their context. How well have they cultivated their own soul? How well have they cultivated their own mind to receive teaching that's out there? So when we say mind your business, that's a context shift. Imagine someone gets up in the morning and says, oh man, I'm late for work today. They think, oh, I got to go to work today. Oh, I'm getting up. What should I wear to go to work today? What route should I take to go to work today? And their focus and their mindset is on someone else's business. But what if someone woke up in the morning and the biggest question was, what asset might I buy today? What's available? How am I going to raise capital or leverage to be able to acquire an asset? That change in focus, putting one's mind on one's own business is a game changer of context, I think. So I don't want to put words in his mouth, and I want to insert my opinions into it. But if you look at what the author said, he was fairly clear. Your job is not your business. Assets are your business.
That's so good. Now, speaking of jobs, how does investing fit into this idea of minding your own business?
Well, when he says your assets are your business, we could do a self-inventory. We could ask those questions to ourselves. You, me, anyone watching, did I acquire an asset today? Or did my assets perform today? And if you want to be specific in what it means, is businesses have meetings. They have frequency of interaction. They have a team. So, for example, how often do you meet with your tax advisor? And do you meet with your tax advisor after? Well, that'd be an accountant. There's no advice to give. You're just accounting for what you did. The tax advisor meets far before tax day, and we plan out a blueprint, a plan of how we're going to go about things. Does your tax advisor talk to your attorneys and your asset protection guys to make sure that there's a good balance there? Because there's tax ramifications for how you set those things up. Do you have your weekly meeting if you have a spouse? That's got to be a team effort, in my opinion. I suppose it could work if one person was the vanguard and did all of it and the other person didn't touch it. That's fine. But I think in most cases, it's best if couples talk about money and make a plan together, putting the mind on the business. Life is, there's an asset of money, but there's also your asset of time. Like Steve Jobs says, your time is limited. And the currency of time is attention. It's where you place your focus and your attention each day. Your life, my life, everyone's life, is a chronology of our attention. So when we say, well, mind our own business, that means, are we going to take some of the time we have and invest in building our assets? So I recommend, and by the way, if you go to stockcastbonus.com, it shows you exactly how I do this, by the way, for free. But I give the agenda for my weekly meeting with Marcy and I that we have as a template. You could change it. You can do it different, but at least you have something to start with. And you can do what I do exactly if you'd like. But we place our attention on that. We have an agenda and we have an order in which we follow, and we place our attention and we put our mind on our business, which is all the asset classes. We have gold. What are we going to do with the gold? Where does it fall in? Do we have too much? Do we have too little? I guess you couldn't have too much gold, but what's the mix, right? How's our real estate going, right? Marcy and I have had a conversation about real estate, I think every day, because it's a big part of what we're doing right now. Every day for the last 2 months. I think we've probably talked about it every day. Stocks. We don't really care about ups and downs, but we very much care about the cash flow that comes from real estate. We don't really care about the ups and downs, but we very much care about the rent that's being charged and how much that finds its way into our pockets and how much finds its way, into property managers' pockets or, anyone else that has their fingers in the pie, maintenance and things like that. So what mind your own business means to me is that you're taking some of that time currency, that attention, and it's the bigger focus in your life than your job. It's okay to have a job. And some people, because they wouldn't know how to buy assets yet, they just quit cold turkey, they wouldn't eat, they'd starve. So that's fine. He said, the author also said, start small and be consistent. And that's a huge thing for having a weekly meeting is no matter where you are, you can start and you can be consistent. But how much time the self-assessment might be, how much time did I spend looking at my own financial statement last week? How much time did I spend planning changes to that financial statement and how I want to try to tweak it and improve it last week? How many assets did I acquire, if any, last week? How much cash flow did my assets provide last week, and did it grow from the previous month to the previous quarter? This is minding my own business. This is looking at what I'm trying to build with my wife, bigger and bigger and bigger, as big as we can get it, and have legacy, right? I mean, that's the deal. So that's what I think it is. Focusing your attention and having the conversations, the meetings, the interactions that go that don't happen if we don't have our mind on our own business as a priority over the job. Like I said, you have a job, it's not your priority, right? Your priority are your assets. Your focus, like when you play the cash flow game, is getting out of the rat race, not getting promoted deeper in it.
Very true. Very true. Well, let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Andy's, he's already shared some very powerful insights, and we're just getting started. In the second half of the show, Andy's going to walk us through some real world strategies for building your own business within your finances, even if you've never started a company. And don't forget, if you're ready to start taking action, go to stockcastbonus.com. You'll find powerful free resources to help you to start building your own asset base today. Stick around. We'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And like, they're not just trying to sell you something, they really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to Rich Dad StockCast. I'm your host, Denney, and we're talking about one of the most important mindset shifts in all of financial education. Stop working only for money and start working to build your own financial foundation. Now, Andy, what are your top assets that people should be focusing on if they want to start minding their own business? Is it real estate? Is it stocks? Is it education? What do we do?
Yeah, we say there are 4 asset classes, and you find the one or the mix that is right for you. Some people really like to focus on one and even a niche within that one. For example, someone like Kenny McElroy, he's going to focus on multifamily, and that's what he does. And he doesn't do a lot of commercial. He doesn't do a lot of single family home. He's that's what he does is apartments, right? Other people might do a commodity. They might be a gold or maybe a crypto guy. Maybe she's a real estate person. She is a single family home person. I really love all the asset classes. And maybe I'm a jack of all trades, maybe a master of none. I don't know, but I tend to be known mostly for my ability to simplify. I remember when we were in Vegas, and Kim Kiyosaki pulled me aside before I'd really built the Cash Flow Academy the way it is today. And she said, "You should build this. You should teach because you're a good teacher." So I didn't get into teaching because I was beating Warren Buffett in the investing contest and Steve Jobs in the entrepreneur contest, and I wasn't beating Donald Trump in the real estate contest. But I knew how to make things simple. So I'm best known for stocks. And when you teach it as much as I do, you tend to acquire stocks, and you tend to build your dividends up, and you build your cash flow up. One of the stocks I talk a lot, one that was really a home run for me, that's recent, in my brain 5 years is recent, is I picked up a few stocks in COVID, and picked up 4 or 5 that are just life-changing. Now, even 5 years later, they really put a boost. Let me give you an example. If you don't know how to start a business, buy a business. Now, there's 2 ways you could do that. You could do a franchise. You could buy somebody out. You could take over a business someone's retiring. There's lots of opportunity. Lots of baby boomers are now. They're not only retiring, they're retiring from retirement. There's businesses out there that have no kids that can take it over or want to work that hard. And you can buy a business. But the way Warren Buffett did it is he started by buying companies that he didn't have to start, by buying shares. He didn't buy the whole business, but he bought a share. So still his business, he shares in it with other people. It's jointly owned. It's mutually owned. And so, for example, a company like Duracell, he owns the whole thing. Berkshire owns all of it. A company like Geico, a company like Dairy Queen, Fruit of the Loom, the list goes on. These are companies he owns the whole thing. But there's a huge part of his wealth that owns shares. in companies like Apple or American Express or Occidental Petroleum or Chevron or what have you. What a great way to mind your own business. It's click, and then you have a business. You think about how hard it is to get a McDonald's franchise, and you're only owning one franchise, right? How much cost it is. You got to go to Hamburger University. There's a lot there. I click a button and I'm an owner of a billion-dollar company, part owner of it. What a great way to mind your own business, Del. So when 2020 hit and oil was free, it didn't take a genius to realize that, dude, oil ain't going to be free forever. Like, you're not going to this is an anomaly. We're in a situation right now where we have an overabundance of oil. It's being pumped. We have nowhere to put it. So we're paying people to take it off our hands because you can't just dump it outside, right? You got to have someone to take the oil. So it was free. We were paying people to take oil off our hands. As a result, people freaked out. They go, how's ExxonMobil going to make money when oil's free? Well, right now they're not going to make any, but they're not going to die here, right? They have what's called a moat. They're around to stay. They're an energy company, and people need energy. So this was an opportunity to swoop in. They actually borrowed money so they could pay their dividend. They sold bonds, and they've paid a dividend that has increased every year for 40 years in a row. This is way back before, I was in high school. They've been doing this, right? Long time. And so their dividend has continued to grow. Now look at this. Let's do some numbers. You buy that at $43, I think is what my cost basis probably is. I had some puts that I sold and did some put work that brought my cost basis down. I wanted to buy it around 55, but I actually was able to get around 43. So let's call it 43. Well, their dividend is $4.96 a year. So for every share I spent $43, I'm getting $4.96. My math says that's around 10%. Spend $40, get $4, right? Whatever it is. $3.96, excuse me, not $4, $3.96. So, you spend about $40 and you get about, 9 point whatever percent. So you got a 10% asset. And is that going to last the rest of my life? Is it guaranteed to last the rest of my life? Nothing's guaranteed. Is it highly likely to last the rest of my life? Yeah, it's very likely that it is. Okay, now on top of that, let's say it's $100, 109, whatever it is today. Once a month, I can go in there and I could do a very conservative strategy called covered call writing, where I can say, look, if someone wants to pay way too much money for it and it grows really quick, hey, I'd be willing to sell it maybe. Now, I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've only had 2 times where it's gone high enough to need an adjustment. Most of the time, I make that price so high, I sell that lottery ticket to someone who is probably less likely to, they're greedy. They don't want to pay $100 for the stock. And I'll get a premium. And let's say the premium is, 1% a month off my cost basis. I wouldn't get that if I bought the stock today, but knowing that I bought in the low 40s, that's 1% a month. So that's 20%. That's pretty good. Rule of 72, I don't know how often that doubles in the rule of 72. I can't do the math in my head, but what is that, 3.5 years, something like that? That compounding is powerful. And you can do the same thing with stocks like Prudential. And, there's a bunch that we picked up, but that's what minding your own business is. And so now, I took my son when we had in the same year, and I took him down and I showed him our Apple phones, and I took out our American Express bill, which we pay everything with, and we looked at our Apple phones. I said, let's see if we can make more money with AT&T than we spend on their network. And let's see if we can make more money by selling Apple and selling covered calls on Apple than we can that we spend on our phones. And so we're minding our own business as producers. What minding your own business does is it turns you into a producer. I know I'm long-winded on this. You've asked one question. I've answered it for like an hour now, but this is so important, Del. If everyone can listen, and this is why I give away and I plug StockCast bonus so much because it's a free way to start the context shift. So when I talk about context, it's a lot about how you think about things, right? Does your mind think the right way to where it can even catch a lesson? So see if people can see this lesson. Most people look at stocks through the lens of price movement. I want to buy this stock, and I hope it goes up so I can sell it and make a lot of money. And that is the worst mindset you can possibly start with. I mean, that's what people on CNBC talk about. And I think about that. Most people have the worst mindset of all. They say, well, I'm going to buy this stock low. Andy, tell me a stock where the price is going up so I can buy low and sell it high. What the hell are you asking me for? I'm not like a crystal ball here. No. The mindset is what percentage. The mindset is how much producing do I do? How much of my time and how much of my effort and how much of my focus is on producing things for other people rather than myself? And at a job, I can serve a boss. I can follow her instructions or his instructions. I can go to a job and serve a boss. But if I decide to own shares, I can serve millions of people, billions of people all around the world. Do you know how hard it is to build an iPad? Do you know how hard it is to build 300 million iPads in a short amount of time? Like if you're going to have a release date and you say, we're coming out with a new iPad, and you got to build 300 million of them, and then you got to ship them all over the world and have customer service for the whole thing. You know how hard it is to build it in a short amount of time, ship it around, and then support it and keep them running? I don't know how to do that. Steve Jobs isn't even alive anymore. He can't do it, but there's a company that does it, and they say, Andy, we'll share that genius with you so you can be a part of this production. So the idea of minding your own business has nothing to frickin' do with what stock is buying low and selling high. You think I'm going to sell Exxon? You think I'm going to buy that at 40 and say, no, it's 109. I think it's time to sell because I've doubled my money on the stock. I did not double my money on the stock price. I have no interest in selling it. Why? You doubled your money? Oh, no. The 20%, think about that. You can double your money in 5 years, which is probably about 10, 20% a year, whatever it is, Rule 72, or you can get your cash flow in that situation. Why would you focus on the stock price instead of serving people? If I were to sell that stock, I wouldn't be able to serve those people anymore. And I wouldn't get those dividends anymore. And I couldn't write those options anymore. My goal, I'd sell a golden goose, for crying out loud. See, did you catch that? I did it for you, Del.
I did.
I put the golden goose reference. See who got this far in the video. I did it for you.
Throw those eggs in those comments. Yeah, I heard that.
So when I talk about context, hopefully, someone out there listening, one or two people might have said, oh my gosh, he's right. Why would I worry about buying something low and selling something high? I should say this: the more people that I serve, the more effective I become. And once I buy a share of a powerful company that's serving people every day, I do what Warren Buffett's saying. He said, seek out the lowest way to participate in American business and do it consistently, which is very close to what the author said in Rich Dad, Poor Dad, when Robert said, assets of your business, start small, and be consistent. Well, shares, you start with $10 and go buy a share, right? But be consistent. And did I acquire shares? Am I compounding? Do I own a business? So I think stocks is a great way to start owning a business. What a great way to learn financial statements. What a great way to get on the calls, every quarter and, listen to what they're doing. With all the tariff stuff that went on, there were companies that were really thinking about shutting down some plants and doing this and that. And you get to listen and be in business and listen to your business partners and the CEO that works for you, how he's running the company. You can learn a lot by minding your own business.
Very true. All right. Final question for you, Andy. Rapid fire. What's one thing someone listening right now, what's one thing that they could do by the end of the day to take their first step?
Well, you know that. Shoot, that's a softball over the home plate. Go to StockCastBonus.com, download that thing, and start doing it. And I'm not going to say here, oh, yeah, this is life-changing for you. I'm going to let you read it, and you look in the mirror and say, wow, this is life-changing for me. It's better for you to come to that conclusion as a reader of what we have there. There is an overabundance of information, even more misinformation. AI is creating massive amounts of misinformation because it's rhetorical. AI isn't designed to tell you the truth. It's designed to steer you, which is really a scary thought. I talk about fun, simple, and real. Talk to real people that can give you real information. I'm telling you, it scares the devil out of me. So go to StockCastBonus.com, download that, and start acting. Because it isn't when you watch the 10-second short. I mean, you can't learn anything significant in 10 seconds. Like you can't learn how to trade stock in 10 seconds. TikTok is not going to do it. What's going to do it is when you click on the buy button, and now shares are yours, and now dividends starts coming in. It's not what you read, it's what you do. It's not what you watch, it's what you do. It's not what you listen to, it's what you do that will determine. It's not the podcasts you choose to tune into, it's what you do. So the most important thing is to do. Do something. Click a button and buy some shares. Now you can learn a couple ways. You can learn by making mistakes, trial and error. Pick a company, buy it, and you'll learn something one way or the other. Work to learn, don't work for money. Or you can get mentors and teachers, get yourself a rich dad. And that's what Robert did. He got himself a rich dad. So when he made the mistakes, some were headed off before he made them. Some he still made, but his rich dad could help him out. But yeah, go to StockCast Bonus today. If you haven't, it's free. So there's nothing to be harmed by. And just see if that sequence and that weekly activity that I show you how to do wouldn't change your life, and prove it to yourself. I already know it works for my family. See if it works for your family.
Fantastic. Well, that wraps up today's episode of Rich Dad StockCast. Listener, if you only take one thing away from today's show, let it be this: wealthy people focus on building their asset columns, not just their income. So go do, as Andy says, go buy something, go do something. They mind their own business. Now, a huge thank you to Andy Tanner for breaking it down for us. Remember, if you're serious about building wealth, start getting educated. Head over to StockCastBonus.com. Grab your free tools, your resources. They'll help you make better and smarter investing decisions starting today. And if you've got value from this episode, do me a favor. Subscribe, leave a review, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Rewatch it. If you hear the egg, throw the golden goose egg in there. Thanks for listening to Rich Dad StockCast. I'm Del Denney. Stay smart, stay invested, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.